Hi, today we're going to go over how to write a ratio and a proportion, or I should say we're going to review. Please take the new packet, and this should be page 1 of the new packet. Looks just like this. We're going to start out by going over some vocab. So ratio. Ratio is the comparison of two numbers through division. You've seen it before like this, 1 to 2. You've seen it written 1 to 2. But my favorite way, and the way we're going to use it in this class, is as a fraction, 1 over 2, remembering that the fraction bar means division. Now, a proportion is when you set one ratio equal to another. So, for example, 1/2 does equal 4/8. And we have gone over how you can use a proportion to help you solve an unknown. So if this was x, we could use the proportion by applying the cross product property rule, which says you multiply this times this, which is 8, and it's going to equal this times this, which is 2x. And if you solve that, you would get 4. So we will be going over that. And one thing you have to remember, and you will get points off in this section. I've been lenient in other sections, but because we're actually learning it in this section, you must always simplify your ratios. So you can never leave 4 over 8. You have to simplify it to 1 over 2. Okay, now, so let's go down here, and it says a ratio uses what to compare quantities? Hopefully you remember division. And a ratio of two quantities, A and B, where B is not equal to 0, can be written 3 ways. So if I ask you to write the ratio of A to B in 3 ways, hopefully you'd say, oh, well, I could write A to B. I could write A to B. And now everybody think of the last way, because the last way is how I want you to do it, A over B. Each ratio is read as the ratio of A to B. Now, when we say a fraction, we usually don't think of it as the ratio of A to B. We just say A over B, but that's really what it is. And ratios should always be written in simplest form. And right, points will be taken off. So when you take your quiz tomorrow on slope, remember, always put it in the simplest form. Okay, so now let's go over a word problem that we might use ratios and proportions with. So here, this says cell phone use. A person makes 6 long-distance calls and 15 local calls in 1 month. Now, when we do ratios, we either do part to part ratios or part to whole. And it just helps you set up if you think about what kind of ratio is this. So, for example, long distance calls to local calls. Long distance is part of the total, local is part of the total. So this is part to part. Okay, you don't have to write this, but I want you to be thinking about it. So a person makes 6 long distance phone calls and 15 local. So the ratio is 6 to 15. But why did they give us 2 more spaces? Well, they gave us 2 more spaces because this is not in simplest form. So we have to divide by 3, divide by 3. So we get 2/5, and that's the final answer. Now they ask us long distance calls to all calls. So how do you get the total number of calls? Well, this would be 6. And 6 plus 15 is 21. So the total number of calls is 21. And again, this is not simplified because we can divide both the top and the bottom by 3, and I get 2/7. So this was a part to whole. Okay, so this should all be flooding back to you. The only thing maybe different is that I want you to think of them as part to part or part to whole, and it's just a way of setting it up correctly. So let's see how I get to the next section. So we turn the page. And now this says, Sean and Myra are selling tickets. Move this thing out of the way. Okay. To their school's talent show. Sean sold 36 tickets and Myra sold 44 tickets. Find the specified ratio. So even before I start, I'm going to anticipate. Sean is part, Myra is part. What's going to be the whole? So the whole number of tickets is going to be 80 tickets for the whole. So if I'm going to do the ratio of the number of tickets Sean sold to the number of tickets Myra sold, I'm going to just help myself here and put Sean over Myra. And Sean sold 36. Myra sold 44. So that's my ratio. But everyone think, why won't I get full credit for that on a quiz? Hopefully you're saying, because you have to divide both by 4, which is correct. And I get 9/11ths. And that would be the correct answer. And that was part to part. Okay. Now, I'm going to do the number of tickets Myra sold to the number of tickets Sean and Myra. So this is going to be part to whole. Or you could write Sean over Sean plus Myra. But either way, I get Sean is 36. Sean and Myra together is 80. Divide by 4, divide by 4. And I get 9/20. And that's a part to whole. And that is correct because it's simplified. Okay, so you try number 3 and 4 on your own. Stop the video, try it, and then start the video again and look up and see if you got it right. So there's a total of 50 Jolly Ranchers and 18 are grape. So grape to total is part to whole, 18 to 50. Simplify it, it's 9/25. Blue raspberry to cherry is part to part, and it's 12/20. Simplify it, both are divisible by 4. I get 3/5. Okay, so make sure your answers were simplified. Now, this says when a proportion is a ratio set equal to another. The property of proportions is called the cross product property, and it states that if A over B equals C over D, then A times D equals B times C. And we have been working on this with certain slope problems, right? So here, if you look here, if I have the proportion y over 15 equals 3 over 5, I say 5 times y equals 3 times 15. So I get 5y equals 45, divide by 5, and y equals 9. So that's a demonstration of the cross product property rule. Now let's turn the page. And we're going to solve some proportions using that rule. So you can look at the first one on your own. But for this next one, I want you to think about how we're going to do it. And the way we're going to do it is I'm going to say A times 8, or 8A, equals 7 times 32. Now, the good news in this chapter is you're going to get to use calculators. But 7 times 32 I can do on my own, and I don't have a calculator right now. So 8A equals 224. What do I do to solve? Divide by 8, divide by 8. And 8 goes into 224. 8 goes into 22. 2 times 16. That's borrow. And I get a remainder of 64. And 8 goes into 64 28 times. So my answer is 28. 28 over 32 equals 7 over 8. Okay, now the next one is a little trickier. because we have an expression inside the fraction. And remember, what do we do when we have an expression inside the fraction, especially one on top? Oh no, poor little a, poor little 6, they might fall down. Let's protect them. So whenever you see an expression in a fraction, we're going to protect them. So I'm going over here, I'm going to protect these. This is a way of remembering when you do multiply, you have to multiply both numbers. So I'm going to do the cross product property rule. 4 times 21 equals 7 parentheses a plus 6. If I don't use that parentheses and multiply both a and 6, I'll get it wrong. So 4 times 21 is 84 equals 7a plus 42 minus 42 minus 42. 42 equals 7a. Divide by 7, divide by 7, a equals 6. Okay? And then now for this one, I'm going to say 2.2 times x minus 1 equals 3.3 times x minus 2. See what I did there? This times this equals this times this. Notice I have parentheses. So 2.2x minus 2.2 equals 3.3x minus 6.6. If I multiply the entire equation by 10, I get rid of those nasty decimals. 22x minus 22 equals 33x minus 66. Subtract 22 from both sides. And I get, and then I'm going to cheat and do them both at the same time because I have that little box below me. That goes away, that goes away. This becomes 11x equals 44. So x equals 4. Okay, now I want everyone to do number 5 and 6 on your own. 5 and 6 on your own. So stop the video, do it on your own. Start it up when you're done and check your answers. So for number 5, 3 times 2 is 60 equals 6 times c minus 8. Remember, I'm putting the parentheses. 60 equals 6c minus 48 plus 48 plus 48. 108 equals 6c. Divide by 6, divide by 6. C equals 1, 8. Okay. And for my Jolly Rancher one, I have 10 blue, 20 green, 35 purple. So the ratio of blue to green is 10 to 20, which simplifies to 1/2. Blue to purple is 10 to 35, which simplifies as 2/7. And blue to all would be 10 over 30, 65, which simplifies to 13.